And welcome back to another episode of Devil Dash. I am Wills, joined by Josh here. This is episode number 26, and it is Elite Eight basketball. Unfortunately, the first Pac-12 team in the Elite Eight went down, Oregon State. We'd like to, start off the show. Little shout out to Oregon State. I know it's been talked about a million times on TV, but picked to come in last in the Pac-12 this year preseason. Into the tournament, wouldn't have gotten an at-large bid, and then obviously won the Pac-12 tournament, beat who was it first round? They beat a 5 seed, drawing a blank on it, but it was a really incredible run to make it to the Elite Eight. I think it was 0.8% of brackets had them going this far. Really incredible. They were the highest seed with after Oral Roberts got eliminated, Oral Roberts in Syracuse. So RIP Oregon State, but we still got USC and UCLA coming up tomorrow. So 2 more chances for the Pac-12 to book a Final Four spot. Josh, we kind of watched we got to see the end of the Oregon State game. They were losing by 17 at half and didn't give up. Actually, brought it within 2 to 4 points with like 4 minutes to go. Ultimately, couldn't pull it all back. But what do you see from the Pac-12, specifically Oregon State, to this point?
Just overall some really good basketball. And, before we get into it, shout out to our boy Morgan. And I want to say George, I think his name is George, our other Dash sports host at Oregon State. Hey, you guys won the city. You guys won the state of Oregon. You guys are better than the Ducks. That's bragging rights right there. And good for you guys. I hate to see the season come to an end. I was rooting for them all the way. But yeah, Tinkle has definitely made his legacy known in that building, within that program, and he really helped put the Pac-12 on a national scale. This year in the tournament, and I think this year with the Pac-12 doing well and finally coming out of the dark hole that we've been in, and the disrespect, you could say. We're kind of getting some more players and some guys with some heart. And, the first player that comes to my mind, the best player in the Pac-12 is Evan Mobley, without a doubt, leading the Trojans to what looks like it's going to be a Final Four, if you ask me. I mean, Gonzaga is going to be a really tough team, but, we saw them blow the doors off of Kansas. If they can replicate that game again, I see them beating Gonzaga by at least 10 points. And, Ethan Thompson, man, credit to Ethan Thompson. This guy can play. He can shoot. He's got heart. And he's probably the main reason, not today for sure, but he's the main reason why the Beavers went as far as they did. And, he had 1 point at halftime today, and he probably had 7 points in the second half with like 5 minutes to go. So, brought it back at the end. Really good game. Tip of the cap to Houston, but yeah, you're not gonna make it to the Final Four when your best player puts up a little over 10 in the Elite Eight game. You know what I mean? And
I think it shouldn't go unsaid. Oregon State, obviously, it's about who's playing the best basketball, but I mean, they had the stretch. It really needs to be said. The 6 wins that they had before, going into this, the 6-game win streak, they beat UCLA, who's an Elite Eight team, or a shot to go to the Final Four tomorrow. They beat UCLA. They beat Oregon, who was in the Sweet 16. They beat Colorado, who was in the Sweet 16. They then beat Tennessee. They then beat Oklahoma State. And then they beat Loyola Chicago. They beat some good teams on the way here, and it's really crazy to think about. Looking at their record and looking at what they did to the Pac-12. I was showing Josh earlier. They had a 3-game streak of losing to Washington State, Portland, and Wyoming. 3 games back to back to back. Oregon State did at the beginning of the season. So it really shows that, it's not about how you're playing. It's about, at the beginning. It's about, how that team really gels together at the end of the year. And, we were urging ASU to do that for so much of the season, to find that identity, which they really never could. And it's safe to say that Oregon found a heck of an identity. Oregon State, excuse me. No disrespect, but they found an identity, and it's something that it really can't go without saying. That streak that they went on to end the year was really something that will go down not in history, but a really memorable run.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were, I'd say, the most anticipated game in my eyes. This past weekend was Oregon State Loyola, and 2 kind of underdogs. No disrespect to Loyola, they're not truly an underdog, but and they kind of still are on the cusp of that underdog scenario for their program. And man, was that a good game? Yeah, if I remember right, that was right before that game. We were giving some advice to our friends who gamble. We don't get in the mix, but we are knowledgeable gentlemen of the sport. And I remember Wills telling me, man, when a team like Oregon State goes on a three game losing streak like they did against the caliber of teams they played, when you look at the big picture, how can you really see a team like that, putting together a solid, Loyola and Krutwig, the big man down under, and yeah,
he's not from Australia. By the way.
He's not. The stash is it's not Australian, but it's telling, man, it's exotic. Okay, and yeah, as soon as he said that, I told our friend to fade Wills, and hey, look what happened. We back to pack in this house, and yeah, man, I'm really happy with how the Pac-12 has just flipped the script on all the haters about the conference we are and the level of sporting teams we have. I mean, I'm just done with this. We're good now. We're good. Listen to Bill Walton.
I gotta say, take this as you will, but the Suez Canal, it was damned, if you will, for a week. Oregon State goes on an incredible run. The day it gets undammed, if you will, the Evergreen, Evergiven, whatever that ship was called, got undammed that canal, and ships were finally able to go through. The Beavers played their worst basketball of March.
Even Thompson
God works in mysterious ways. I'm not saying it's a coincidence, but I'm also not saying it's not a coincidence. That's what I'm saying. But we still have UCLA, and USC. USC has looked fantastic, and now Andy Enfield, his name I saw on Instagram today. His new name is Coach, because dating back to his Florida Gulf Coast, everyone remembers Florida Gulf Coast. Dunk City, I think their nickname was. He is now, listen to this, pretty interesting stat. We don't gamble, but like you said, we know the stats. He is now undefeated against the spread in March Madness his entire career. So Florida Gulf Coast made it to the Sweet 16, and now he's had 7 games with USC in March Madness. He is 10-0 against the spread in March Madness. Coach Covers is the new nickname. I saw it on Instagram. I'm not claiming it, but
otherwise known as Dr. Locks.
Dr. Locks. I believe the spread tomorrow for that game is +9. If I remember correctly, it's USC +9. So for anyone that does like to gamble, Coach Covers 10-0 against the spread, getting 9 points against the Zags. That's quite a bit. Yeah, I'm looking at over/under of 153.5. The way USC is playing defense and the way Gonzaga can play defense, I think that's a lot of points. I'm not saying it won't hit because USC shot the lights out early on in that game, and Gonzaga just has probably the best ball movement in the entire country. But let's talk about the last Pac-12 team. We got 2 minutes until the next segment. UCLA. I mean, pretty crazy. They're now the 5th play-in team to make the Elite Eight in the last 10 years. So every other year, a play-in team makes the Elite Eight, which, for Sun Devil fans, it's nice noting because it seems like we're in contention for that play-in game every other year. Every other year. So, to know that those play-in teams get to the Elite Eight quite often is reassuring for us Sun Devil fans.
We just love going to Dayton for that play-in game for some odd reason.
So, it's so weird, but I thought Oregon State had the best chance of making the Final Four because, they played a Houston team who should have lost to Rutgers, very well could have lost to Rutgers. Gonzaga's obviously undefeated, been the best team in the country all year. I know USC's hot, but it's still somewhat of a David versus Goliath. Anytime anyone probably but Baylor or Michigan plays Gonzaga. And then UCLA is playing Michigan. Michigan has looked fantastic. They just beat a really good Florida State team, the Fighting Leonard Hamiltons, by 18 points, I believe. 18 points. And that Florida State team beat Colorado by 18. And that was a red-hot Colorado team. So, oh, man, UCLA's got their hands full. They've played an extra game compared to everyone else in this point with the play-in game. The good thing for UCLA, though, is, we noted it earlier about Oregon State. They got knocked out early in their tournament. So that's why they got put in the play-in game because, they lost they did get a bye, but they lost in the second round of the Pac-12 tournament. So they were pretty well rested going into this game. Obviously, this is now their 5th game in the last week and a half, I want to say. So we saw it with ASU, how the legs can get tired. Let's hope, they're going to need all the legs they can get against this really, really good-looking Michigan team. But we could see a UCLA, USC, crosstown rivals in the Final Four if we get blessed. Pac-12 gods the way Bill Walton wants it.
Look, I already saw USC Oregon for the
2nd time this year.
It should have been at least 4th time this year, and I don't want to see any more Pac-12 versus Pac-12 basketball. Give us the big boys. We want the Michigans. We want the Gonzagas. We want to take them down. Tomato. I'm sorry.
Do you say go Zogs or go Zags?
You say Gonzaga or Gonzaga. You can say both. You say
go Zogs.
I say go flipping.
Ooh, close.
Zags. That's what I say.
All right, so we do have to transition. We spent a lot of time talking about Oregon State. I want to talk about Oregon State kind of being a model. We saw, obviously, I think ASU has the resources and talent to be leaps and bounds consistently better than Oregon State. This isn't what I'm trying to say, but we talked last week about, the one and done model versus, bringing in 4-year starters, whether, Coach Hurley, what should he attack? Because we had most success recently with 4-year players in Trey Holder and, Remy Martin, Shannon Evans. It's those players that got us to number 3 in the country, that got us, into the March Madness, that we ended up winning a play-in game, which I know isn't all that impressive. But and then we saw the Lou Dortz, where obviously he should have, they got unlucky in the tournament. They ran into a pretty good team. Still play-in game though, lost. Last year's team probably would have made it to, if not a play-in game, right around there. Can ASU win with this model of one and dones? They just brought in the 4 or 5-star recruit, depending on where you're looking at it, was to note he is a center, by the way. And then, huge. We talked about Bobby Hurley after Romello White, transferred. Having Jalen Graham as your center was just detrimental to this team. Nothing against him, but everyone saw it, and it was unfortunate. But the big thing is, I don't have his name up in front of me, but they got a transfer out of Robert Morris, and do with this what you will. I mean, I know we saw Holland Woods' numbers off the chart. We saw, Luther Muhammad was a former 5-star recruit who will be eligible next year. But this guy from Robert Morris is a wing player, a forward, can play the 3 or the 4. He averaged like 23 points and 11 rebounds for Robert Morris. And who cares? We saw Oral Roberts go to the Sweet 16. The guy can score. And if you're missing Remy Martin and Alonzo Verge next year, that's a lot of points you're going to have to make up for. And, Kamani did post on his Instagram story that, quote, he said, might have to run it back for 1 more year. So that's a good sign. Probably going to get Kamani Lawrence back, a good wing. I don't know. There's a lot of questions for this team, but, what do you think? One and done or 4-year players should be the model for this team?
I'd like to see the school transition, honestly. We saw Bobby do his thing with, guard you, like you talked about earlier. And we were playing well, but we had a plateau. We had a semi-good Romello White that was a great presence on the inside, but he lacked we called him, don't take this to heart, Romello, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but
I'm sure he's listening.
We called him Brick Hands Mello in this household.
I want to say he was my favorite player on the team. I liked him more than Remy Martin last year.
That never came up when he was with averaging 12 boards and like 16 points a game. We were not calling him that. We might have called him that, and if we did, it came at the very end when it's a close game. Remy just gives him a perfect feed right through the other players' legs, nutmegs him essentially, and it just bounces off. It's one of those things where you see the arms go like this, and the ball hits him right in the head. That's when we break out the Brick Hands Mello. But hopefully, that problem's solved with guy's name is killer to pronounce. I'm sorry, but it's like something, and
it's a tough one.
The center, 6'10". He's like 240 pounds, just a huge physical presence, underneath the rim. And that's going to be drawing bodies. That's going to be drawing a bunch of attention, a bunch of game plan from the coaches. Hopefully just open it up for, homie from Robert Morris who can score like his life depends on it. And we also have we got another transfer from Boston College who's averaging around, I want to say maybe 12 and a half or 14 and a half points a game. And
he was their leading scorer,
yeah, leading scorer for Boston College. And believe it or not, he's the 12th
in the ACC.
12th, highest average scorer in the ACC. And in my eyes, that's a great conference for college basketball,
Had a down year, but absolutely.
Top 10 of those guys are from 3 schools, in the ACC.
Yeah.
So maybe even 2, UNC, Duke, I say. But I'm excited with these transfers that we're getting, the center that we got, and man, this could be the start of something. We could get 3-4 more guys. And completely change.
So it is, like I said, Luther Muhammad. He was the transfer from Ohio State that came over. We've got a score update. Baylor is up 15-3 on Arkansas to start the game. Not a great start for SEC country out there, but this is what I would say for ASU. You still need to figure out a point guard for next season because House transferred, Remy Martin's gone, Verge is gone. We had questions 2 weeks ago of what this team was going to look like. The ACC guy, I think it's great. He's getting 15 points per game, but Boston College was terrible last year. So I don't want to put too much stock into the points per game because it could have been an average player benefiting from a terrible team getting more shots than he would on, let's say even a 500 team. So I want to see how he comes in. But this is my model for ASU. Obviously, this is something that a lot of teams try to do, and I'm not trying to make it sound like an easy path. Excuse me. But I think ASU needed more players like Jalen House because I was really upset to see him transfer. Because the reason I say that, you need 4-year players like him who he's not going to leave college early to go pro by any means. No one's going to draft him. He's going to be someone that stays in college for 4 years. He gave a lot of energy to this team on the defensive end with some assists, coming off the bench, gave great minutes off the bench. He's going to be someone that if you get players like him that can get, kind of like Remy Martin when as a freshman, he will stay 4 years, but Remy's different because he was our best player, if that makes any sense. You need players like Jalen House that are probably going to be in your starting lineup, after Remy leaves. He was supposed to be, that you can surround the players like Josh Christopher and Marvin Bagley with, because I think what we saw this year was kind of a clash of when Christopher shot a really low percentage at the beginning of the year. I feel like Remy also suffered because they were both trying to get their shots in and not really, a cohesive unit. I think Bagley was very good at the beginning of the season. But I think we saw Remy and Christopher kind of battle to be that best player on the team, and it really hurt us to start with. And that's why I think you need more players like House who aren't going to be the star player of the team, but will be great energy guys and could be 4-year players to then surround those one-and-done players with. So, the Jalen Houses, the Jalen Grahams of the world are great. You need a little bit better than that if you want to make deeper runs. But, we saw the 4-year players, like Ethan Thompson was surrounded by a lot of pretty good talent of freshmen. I'm forgetting his name. Not Silva's the big guy, but was it Hunt?
With the goatee. Really good.
Yeah, Oregon State had a freshman who was really good as well in their starting lineup. So, obviously Oregon State, I say a model for ASU. I don't think Oregon State's the model, but, having veteran players that aren't necessarily your best player to surround these one-and-done players with. If that makes sense. I know it's not. I don't mean to make that sound super easy because obviously it's not.
No, it's not. Getting a regular team together and, getting some chemistry, let alone dealing with guys that are transferring out, in and out, year and year after end, that's hard. Just based off of what you said, thinking about bringing in, you're saying we want those 4-year guys, kind of like, like Shannon Evans, the Trey Holder, like those kind of guys that ASU had success with earlier in Bobby Hurley's tenure. It's hard for me to want to latch on to that method of building a team because I think right now this team is kind of in crisis mode. I think this team has high expectation. At least the Pac-12, the general consensus around this team was at least before this season high. The expectations were high.
Very.
The exponential curve that we were going up on was good. We were getting better within each year, and this year was supposed to exceed that and go even further. And I think right now, when Jalen House gone, Remy's gone, Christopher Bagley gone, Tayshaun Cherry, he hasn't been here for the past 2 years, but he's flipping gone. It's just going to be really hard right now for Bobby Hurley to put together a group of, say three. I'm going to go three young, good freshmen that'll, stick with the program through the next 4 years. But, if anyone's going to do that, it's Bobby Hurley. And he's a great coach. We saw with I'm not sure if it was the Boston College transfer or the Robert Morris transfer, but when they referenced why they were coming to this team and why they wanted to play for ASU, it was the sole purpose was Bobby Hurley.
Yeah, one of the greatest point guards.
Exactly.
In history.
Quote exactly. Bobby Hurley is one of the greatest college point guards of all time. Why would I not want to learn from that guy? And that kind of energy, other players are going to read into that, and it's contagious. Bobby Hurley. This was a down year for Bobby Hurley, but sorry, I know we got to move on to the next segment.
Oh no, you're good.
Hey, this guy can make it happen. I think next year is going to be a lot different.
I kind of have one more thing to add. I think the difference, we kept talking about finding identity. And I think I kind of just thought of it as you were talking, is like 2 years ago when Lugwins Dort was on this team. This was Dort's team, and Remy Martin was a very good counterpiece to Dort because Remy could hit the mid-range, hit the three-pointer, while Dort would attack the rim. Whose team was it this year? Was it Christopher's? Was it Martin's? Was it Martin's team? He tried to make it his team, and I think that really hurt Christopher and it hurt Bagley. So I think you need that identity. This was Trey Holder's team that got passed on to Dort that then became Remy Martin's team last year. Remy Martin was a junior, and he went pro and came back and said, I want to run it back one more year, try to get a Pac-12 title. What Bobby Hurley did to him, he rewarded him by bringing in a five-star, and gave the 5-star the keys to the castle and said, sorry, Remy. It caused a lot of confusion. I think that really hurt the Sun Devils. So there just needs to be a little more consistency, but I think this was a really important year for Bobby Hurley. We saw a lot of things falling apart, and it really would have been easy for him to leave town and, kind of blame that not blame, because it is a very valid excuse, but, everything that happened with the booster and how Ray Anderson handled it. So it would have been an easy time for him to get out of ASU if he wasn't happy, and he's really turned it around. I really tip my hat to him. But we do got to move on. Okay, this is a broad question. We can talk about this for probably quite a while because this is I don't say all sports, sorry. We're talking about football and basketball, the two, you really talk about when you talk about the quality of conference. Is the Pac-12 considered a top conference again? The Big 12, they get Oklahoma into the college football playoff every year, but they've gotten stomped every time. The SEC obviously is king in football, but their last team is probably going to get eliminated here. Pac-12 has 3 teams, their college football playoff. They usually, I think more often than not, we've had a representative with Oregon. Actually, no, Oregon's only made it once or twice. But, it's not the best look for the Pac-12 football-wise, but last season doesn't really count. I think they're on the upswing. I think it's easy to say, Washington didn't make it once as well. So,
And got steamrolled.
That was the funniest game ever. They scored the first touchdown. Yeah. They scored the first
7
touchdown.
Points? 3 points?
They scored the first touchdown of the game on their opening drive, went up 7-0 on Bama, and I think the final score was like 56-7 or something.
Sounds about right.
It was bad, but
that's all Nick Saban needs is one drive, and he made his adjustments for the rest of the game.
So we're talking football and basketball again. Where would you rank the Pac-12 in terms of Power 5 conferences? Because obviously, you have USC, UCLA, and Stanford who lead the country in national championships across all sports, and that's why the Pac-12 is known as the Conference of Champions. It goes Stanford, UCLA, USC, I believe, or I know Stanford's number 1. The LA schools could be swapped, but it's a lot of championships if you include sailing, baseball, softball, all that stuff. The Pac-12 is one of the best. But where do you think they stand in the 2 major sports compared to the rest of the Power 5? Are they last still? Are they still last?
Look, you asked me to rank them. I'm sorry. I'm not going to rank.
Sorry, not rank. Right, are they still dead last? Because I would say for the last 3 to 5 years, they have been the last place out of Power 5 teams.
Yeah, I don't know. Is the Pac-12 a top conference again? Is the question we're asking you guys, and I just have to say, at this point, no. Especially, COVID year right now. We already saw a bunch of the top big dogs knock out of the race, referring to basketball. Not sure how big of a difference that would have played out, but it would have changed something, and I think that's worth something in itself. A 7-game, 8-game Pac-12 football season isn't going to change my mind to see if they're in the top of their respective sport when we're referring to conferences. But I think this is a for sure a step forward. Maybe some people actually listen to Bill Walton speaking nonsense on the radio now because he got something right. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's good for the brand generally.
They're making a lot of money, is for sure. But here's my argument: is okay. I think we've passed the Big 12. Obviously, the Big 12 had Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State in terms of football. I think Baylor was pretty good last year. Sorry, that was with the now Panthers. Yeah, with the now Panthers coach. But they have two really good teams, Oklahoma and Texas. I think normally you can stack up Oregon, Washington, and USC with, Oklahoma's definitely the best out of those teams, but there's no way to say Texas is 100% better than any of those three Pac-12 teams. When it comes to basketball, obviously the Big 12 was stacked this year. This is one of the best years they've had in a long time. But the reason I was just kind of thinking about it, the number one recruit in the country for football, Corey Foreman, committed to USC. These number one recruits are thinking about West Coast. He decommitted from Clemson. And, 4 teams in the Sweet 16. And then, obviously 2 of them had to play each other. Sorry, Oregon, you had to play USC. But it sucks. It sucks then that the Pac-12 teams have to. I remember Bill Walton got pretty mad about it, actually. He was mad they had to play each other. But
I can see why.
He's got a decent point. But, I think overall the Big 12 is a great basketball conference, but again, they choke every year. And I know Baylor's still in it, but Baylor has a tendency to choke. West Virginia has a tendency to choke. One of my favorite rants of college basketball ever was the Baylor when they lost to Yale, and the announcer asked the Baylor player the question, how does Yale out-rebound a team like Baylor? And the guy for Baylor sat up there and gave him the definition of a rebound. He said, when the ball is shot, it hits the rim, you jump up, you grab the ball, you bring it into your chest. That's a rebound. Yale got more of those than Baylor did. And I remember it was one of the funniest rants because Baylor had choked. The guy was obviously very upset. But, the Big 12 has a tendency every year to choke. I'm not saying the Pac-12 has a tendency to go to the Elite Eight every year. But, I was looking at the Big 10 hasn't had a champion since 2000. Michigan State was the last one. I mean, who's better? Obviously, the Big 10's a better, football conference. But it's tough to say because, they're just as far in championship-wise. So, I think 3 teams into the Elite Eight shows that the conference has a lot of depth. It has a lot of depth.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and if we're looking at purely championships, first of all, the Pac-12 reigns supreme out of everybody when it comes to just pure sporting championships. So all the haters can kiss it. We are the conference of champions. Like whether you guys like it or not. Whether we're talking about basketball or not, the Conference of Champions is a very broad term, okay? We can throw it in whatever sense we want, and we're going to be right. So just don't even come at us like that. But I think when you say we're comparing the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and just championship like basketball, I think obviously the near championship numbers aren't there for really either of these conferences. But the next thing I would look at would probably be, consistency and maybe not even in the tournament because the tournament is kind of just a wild card, honestly. But, maybe just some regular season league play. That's huge numbers we have to break down. But I guarantee you the Big Ten would be – some of the better teams in the Big Ten would be more consistent than, Pac-12, like ASU losing to freaking Colorado every single year, no matter how good we are.
I think the ACC is one to watch out for. Obviously, Clemson is supreme in football, but Virginia obviously is still the defending national champion, but they lost to UMBC. They really aren't deep. Miami is in there every year. They stink. But we have 20 seconds left in the show. Quickly, who wins UCLA? Who wins USC game? And then who wins the championship? Because next Monday we will be live exactly when the national championship is going on. So, because
Lucky us.
So, give me a prediction now. I want to hear USC game, UCLA game, and then who wins the championship. Real quick.
Trojans take the dub against the Bulldogs. I'm calling it right here. You heard it first. Josh Eyraud, Dash Sports, baby.
Let's go.
And I'm gonna say go Big Blue. I'm sorry. It's nothing to UCLA. It's just Michigan and Juwan Howard. They're rolling right now. What do you say, Willis?
I don't know why. I don't think USC. I think USC's heat's going to run out. I mean, I know I've been a hater the entire time, but they're playing the best team in the country. I do think Mobley. I do think. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this show off the air right now, but I do think Mobley is going to cause a lot of fits. That size and athleticism. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think UCLA game is going to be a lot closer than people think. I do think Michigan's playing really good basketball. I still have Baylor winning it all. That was my pick from the very beginning. They are up 29-16. Arkansas is making a slight comeback now, but they look pretty dang good to start. That is all we have for today. Make sure to check us out on social media, Dashsports TV, or at Dashsports, and then check out dashsports.tv. That's our website. For Josh, for Wills, two guys